So we created some similar movies, and looking at the example of Star Wars, the results weren't bad. They weren't great, but they were okay, right? Let's see if you can actually do a better job. So I encourage you to dive in there and start fiddling around with it again, just to get more practice with using Scala and with using Spark. So here's some ideas of how you might extend that activity to actually make those results even better. One thing you might want to do is discard bad ratings altogether. Do that as early as you can. Like, filter out any bad ratings from the data. Because do we really want to recommend poorly rated movies? Probably not. Like I said before in the explanation of the slides of how this whole algorithm works, two movies can be similar if they're similarly bad to each other, but that doesn't mean they make a good recommendation. So perhaps enforcing some minimum threshold on the review score would be a good idea, or maybe even weighting things based on the review score. How's that for an idea too? There's also different similarity metrics you can choose. We use the cosine similarity metric, but if you look up some of these other ones, there are other ways to do it too, and maybe some work better than others. It's worth experimenting with, and a good way to practice implementing some different algorithms in Scala. You might also try playing with those thresholds for the minimum number of people that rated the same pair of movies, or for the minimum score that we want for a similarity score in the end. Perhaps looking at some movies other than Star Wars, we'll discover that those thresholds might be too high, or maybe they're too low. Maybe there's not enough of a quality threshold being applied there. You could even invent a whole new similarity metric that takes the number of co-raters into account. So instead of having a hard threshold on how many people need to rate a pair of movies for it to be considered, perhaps that's just part of the metric of how similar they are. Maybe we just bake that number into the similarity score somehow. And if you really want to get ambitious, there's more information in u.items besides the movie names. There's also information there about the movie genres. And perhaps filtering things or working that into the similarity metric somehow would be a good idea. Or perhaps we can give a boost to the final results if two movies are in the same genre. It makes sense that science fiction movies would be similar to other science fiction movies, and if you see a science fiction movie that comes back as similar to some drama movie or, a rom-com or something, you probably want that to have a very high similarity score before you really consider that to be a similar movie. Otherwise, it might just be some spurious relationship. So here's a few ideas of how to make the results better, and there's really a whole art to this. I mean, I devoted most of my professional career to solving this problem, and it's definitely not an easy problem to solve, but it's a fun one. So go tinker with the code and see where you get. And if you do come across a interesting twist on the algorithm that produces really good results, we want to hear about it. So go have some fun with it.